Q103, Albany's rock station. We are joined today by legendary producer Don Was. Don, thank you so much for giving us a couple minutes today.
It's great to speak with you, Candace.
Oh, likewise. So, Don, you've worked on some pretty notable albums and with some pretty notable musicians over the year, but most recently, you just finished up recording Greg Allman's final album, actually, Southern Blood, which is going to be coming out on Friday. How did you end up getting involved in this project?
Well, I knew Greg. I met him in the 90s, and there was a point, maybe about 15 years ago, I was driving around in the car, and I heard the version of Midnight Rider from Laid Back, and it just was a reminder of what a great artist he was. So I called his manager up the next day, and I said, I really want to make a record with Greg. And it didn't happen, but he knew I always wanted to work with him, and we did a lot of live stuff, and we were doing this show in Atlanta, Georgia, a couple of years ago called All My Friends. It was a tribute to Greg. Mm-hmm. And he was a part of it. He got up and sang in the show as well. And he was doing some interviews leading up to it, and I was reading them, and he told one local paper, he said, and after this show, I'm going to start working on my next album. It's called Southern Blood. We're going to cut it in Muscle Shoals, and Don Was is going to produce it. So I found out. I got involved by reading about it in the newspaper. And then I saw him a week later, and he said, oh, yeah, man, I hope that's all cool with you. Yeah, of course it's cool.
Yeah, all right, when we start working, right?
Exactly.
So, Greg had some health problems going on for the last several years. When you guys went to start recording this album, did you realize that it was as bad as it was?
I did know, yeah. I knew, he knew. We didn't really talk about it because I think he kind of felt that if you don't acknowledge it, it'll go away.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind, kind of?
Yeah, and I also think that attitude kept him alive an extra 3 years because they gave him a year and a half to live about 5 years ago. So somehow he kept going, but I did know that he probably wasn't going to be around at the time that the record was released.
That's kind of be hard to, go into a project knowing that this might be a possibility. Is this kind of part of the reason why a lot of this album is mostly covers?
Well, I think there were things that he wanted to say. Every song that's there is there for a reason, and there's some. It contributes to an overall picture. He had a vision for a farewell, and I think he was looking to tie up the loose ends of his life. I think as much for himself as for the audience. And I think just with his health being what it was, he wasn't in shape to write the songs and go through that whole process. He wrote one that I think is the most important song on the record. But after that, we tried to find songs that I think they meant something to him and were part of the story he wanted to tell.
So the one he wrote, was that My Only True Friend, the one he did with Scott?
Yeah, he wrote it with Scott, his musical director, Scott Sherrard. And it's really, it's about how he really lived to be up on stage performing. And that's when he felt fully realized. That's when he felt complete and whole. And that everything else was like waiting for the next show to come around. When you went to a Greg Allman show, the guy you saw on stage, that was the true Greg Allman. And the rest was waiting for the next show. Yeah?
Right.
And when you view his life through that lens, I think you get all the things that he faced in life make sense in that context.
Right. I read somewhere that Scott had said that he kind of wrote his portion of that song as if it was the voice of Greg's brother, Dwayne, who had passed, talking to him, but never told Greg. Is there truth to this story?
I think that's true, but I think the stuff Greg added to it made it more from him. Ostensibly, I think he's singing to a woman, who is complaining that he's always gone. And he's saying, I can't help it. This is who I am. This is what I do. But I think it's in a larger sense, he's saying it to everybody.
Right. So there were some pretty emotional instances during the recording process. I heard when he was recording Adam's song that there was a point where he couldn't really finish a verse, and you guys decided to kind of leave it like that on the album.
It was the last song that we cut, and it was the last verse of the song. And first of all, this song is a song for Adam. It's written by Jackson Brown, who's an old buddy of Greg's. They actually crashed in the same apartment for a while in the 60s before either one of them was famous. So they go way back, and Greg always loved this song, primarily because it reminded him of his brother Dwayne. It's kind of it's a song about, a premature ending to a life. And as he's singing it, it was a very emotional reading of the song. Everyone was playing live. I was sitting out in the room with the band, as I always do when I'm producing. I was about 2-3 feet away from Greg, and when he got to the last verse, you can hear it on the record. He sings the lines well, but it seemed like he stopped singing in the middle of his song, and he started crying, and he never got the last 2 lines out.
Oh my gosh! How that?
It was really something, man.
Yeah, I bet.
And it was so emotional. I didn't press him on it, and I just thought, well, we'll punch him in later. The lines. Let's not do it now. And of course, there was no later.
Right.
His health deteriorated shortly thereafter, and Jackson Brown went in while Greg was still alive, and he was listening to it. Jackson went in and sang some harmonies on the chorus, and we talked about whether he should sing the last 2 lines that never, were worded, and we decided, let's leave it, because it now applies to Greg as well. Greg stopped singing in the middle of his song, and he literally stopped singing in the middle of the song. And so that's the last song. That's kind of how Greg Allman makes his exit. And Greg was into it. He heard it. He heard the final mix of it. And,
that's awesome.
Got it, yeah.
So there is a documentary coming out along with the album that is called Back to the Swamp, The Making of Southern Blood. Are we going to see that moment? Was that something that was filmed that we can expect to see in the documentary?
I wish I could tell you. I haven't seen it. I know cameras were there, so I don't know what's in it, but I look forward to seeing it as I hope you do too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, I guess we'll find out together then, right? Oh, Don, thank you very much for taking a few minutes to sit and chat with us today. Of course, Greg Allman's final album, Southern Blood, is coming out on Friday. Is there anything you would like to leave our listeners with before I let you get on with your day?
Well, I would just tell you that he was a really sweet, humble, good guy. I loved him, man. He was a great character, and if you were a lifetime fan of Greg and the Allman Brothers, and you didn't have the opportunity to meet him, if you'd had the opportunity, you wouldn't have been disappointed in him. He was the real deal, and he's a great artist and a great human being.
Oh, Don, thank you so much. Some beautiful words for a very great musician.
Thank you.
Thank you.